Have you ever wondered if the teachings you've received about Christ are incomplete? What if the story you were told only scratches the surface of a much deeper spiritual reality? For centuries, sacred knowledge about the nature of consciousness, the layers of our inner being, and the path to true understanding has been hidden, buried under doctrines and interpretations that keep us from seeing the full picture. The Nag Hammadi texts, discovered in 1945, offer fragments of a revelation that challenges the conventional story. Christ's message was not only about morality or faith, but also about awakening, about rising through hidden layers of consciousness that many have forgotten exist. Imagine for a moment that within yourself, there are levels, stages of awareness, paths you have yet to explore. What if Christ's words, cryptically preserved in these ancient texts, were a map to navigate these unseen realms, guiding you toward clarity, purpose, and self-understanding? Some scholars argue that these writings reveal that spiritual ascent is personal, that awakening to the hidden truths of life begins with understanding the invisible architecture of the soul. Each universe, each level of consciousness, represents a layer of your own inner reality, and learning to traverse them could change the way you experience faith, existence, and your own potential. What if the life you live now is only one layer, and you have yet to uncover the other's layers that could reveal your true self and your connection to the divine? This is the secret that the Church, over centuries, may have obscured, not to deceive, but to preserve order and authority. Yet the Nag Hammadi texts, quietly preserved, hint at a truth that invites curiosity, introspection, and courage. Today, we will begin a journey into these 8 spiritual universes, exploring the wisdom Christ may have revealed through symbolic, mystical language, and connecting it to the challenges and questions we all face: the longing for clarity, the search for meaning, and the desire to awaken fully. As we uncover these hidden layers, I invite you to consider your own path. Which parts of yourself remain in shadow? Which truths have you yet to explore? And as you reflect, remember that this journey is not only about knowledge, it is about experiencing a deeper understanding of your life and your soul. If you want to follow this path of hidden revelations and explore the wisdom the world almost forgot, subscribe to the channel and join this community of seekers who are daring to look beyond what has been told. The first layer we encounter is not a place outside of you, but a state of awareness within. The Nag Hammadi texts describe these universes not as physical worlds, but as stages of consciousness, each one a step closer to understanding the divine spark that resides in every human being. The earliest Gnostic writings suggest that after the fall into ignorance, humanity became entangled in illusions, worldly distractions, rigid doctrines, and fears that cloud the soul. Some scholars believe that the Church, over centuries, emphasized obedience and ritual, while these deeper insights into personal awakening were quietly set aside, almost erased from common knowledge. When we look closely at the texts, we find vivid metaphors, spheres, luminous regions, and divine emanations, all pointing to a hierarchy of spiritual experience. In the first of these hidden universes, the seeker confronts the reality of the material world, not to reject it entirely, but to see its limitations. Here, the consciousness awakens to the fact that life, as it appears, is layered with illusions, and that inner clarity cannot be found solely in external authority or tradition. The Gnostics often describe this stage as recognizing the shadow within oneself, the part of consciousness that reacts without understanding, bound by habits and unexamined beliefs. Moving upward, the second and third universes bring subtle awakenings, insights into the nature of thought, emotion, and intention. Christ, in the symbolic language of these writings, is portrayed as a guide who illuminates the hidden paths, showing the seeker how to move from mere reaction to deliberate awareness. Each level represents not just knowledge, but transformation, the awakening of the mind, the refinement of perception, and the first real glimpses of divine order. Reflect for a moment. Have you noticed how often your mind reacts automatically, repeating fears and doubts? The texts suggest that awakening begins precisely here, by observing and understanding these patterns without judgment and allowing insight to emerge. The fourth and fifth universes, according to the Gnostic manuscripts, introduce the seeker to the balance of inner forces. This is where the divine feminine and masculine aspects of consciousness begin to harmonize. Some scholars argue that the Church's traditional teachings minimize this aspect of human experience, focusing on external morality rather than inner wholeness. Yet the Nag Hammadi texts preserve the symbolism. A luminous figure, sometimes described as Sophia, the embodiment of wisdom, guiding the ascent. The recognition of these layers and the conscious engagement with them allows the individual to rise above the distractions and distortions that have kept humanity spiritually fragmented for millennia. As we consider these universes, think about your own life. Which patterns repeat without reason? Which fears or uncertainties have been normalized, accepted as unchangeable? The Gnostics saw these as barriers that obscure the divine spark within. They believed that by moving consciously through these levels, through self-reflection, awareness, and understanding of hidden truths, one could approach the deeper realities that Christ sought to reveal. Each universe is a mirror, reflecting both the limitations and the potential of your inner self, inviting you to awaken to dimensions of life that remain unseen by most. Do you feel that there is a part of you that has not yet fully awakened? The journey through these first 5 universes may feel abstract, but their effects are tangible. A greater clarity in thought, a calm discernment in decision-making, and a quiet, persistent connection to something larger than yourself. The question remains, are you ready to see beyond the surface of life, to engage with the hidden architecture of consciousness that has been preserved for centuries in the Nag Hammadi texts, waiting for those willing to look deeper? As we ascend to the 6th universe, the Gnostic texts describe a realm where the seeker confronts the forces that distort perception, what the Gnostics call archons. These are not mythological monsters, but symbolic representations of authority, fear, and control that keep consciousness trapped in ignorance. Some scholars believe the Church, in its historical consolidation of power, unintentionally mirrored this structure, emphasizing obedience and external rituals over inner insight. Here, the Nag Hammadi writings challenge us. What if the limitations you experience in life are not only external but internal, shaped by unseen patterns of thought, inherited beliefs, and unexamined conditioning? The 6th universe asks the seeker to recognize these forces without fear, understanding that acknowledging them is the first step toward liberation. The 7th universe is described as the turning point, a threshold of awakening where the hidden revelation of Christ becomes personal and experiential. This is where the seeker begins to access gnosis, the direct, intuitive knowledge of the divine spark within. The texts often symbolize this as a luminous ascent, a moment when the layers of illusion peel away, revealing a connection that transcends dogma and doctrine. Some Gnostic passages describe Christ as a guide who imparts this awakening, not through miracles or words alone, but through the illumination of the mind, the awakening of self-awareness, and the recognition of the divine within. It is a transformative stage, where the seeker begins to understand that the journey through these spiritual universes is not a theoretical exercise, but a lived, intimate experience of clarity and insight. At this stage, the seeker may feel both awe and disorientation. It is a confrontation with the full complexity of consciousness, the good and the hidden, the clarity and the confusion. Yet the Nag Hammadi texts insist that this struggle is essential. Each layer of the universe reflects a part of the self, a part that may have been denied, suppressed, or ignored. The revelation here is subtle but profound. Awakening is not granted externally. It emerges through understanding the hidden structures of your own mind and spirit. Every repeated habit, every fear or attachment is an opportunity to see more clearly, to rise through the universes with intention and awareness. Reflect on your own experiences. Have you ever sensed that your understanding of life is incomplete, that some truths remain just out of reach? The sixth and seventh universes teach that these gaps are not accidents, they are invitations. The forces that obscure consciousness are not invincible. They can be observed, understood, and transcended. And when you reach the turning point, when gnosis emerges, it transforms your relationship with yourself, with others, and with the sense of the divine. This stage is where the hidden truths of Christ become tangible, not in doctrines, but in personal insight, in the quiet clarity that guides decisions, actions, and intentions. In the next block, we will explore the eighth and final universe, the culmination of this ascent, where the ultimate spiritual revelation awaits, a revelation that reshapes the understanding of life, purpose, and the divine spark within each of us. The journey is nearly complete, but the most profound insights are yet to be revealed. The eighth universe, according to the Nag Hammadi texts, is the final layer of consciousness, the realm where gnosis fully unfolds. Here, the seeker no longer sees the world through illusions or external authority, but perceives the inner architecture of the soul and the divine spark that resides within. This universe is not a distant place. It is the culmination of understanding, a state in which every previous layer, the fears, attachments, and distortions, has been recognized, confronted, and transcended. Some Gnostic passages describe this as a luminous state, where the seeker experiences a profound connection to the source, a clarity that illuminates both personal purpose and universal order. Reaching this eighth universe is transformative. It reveals that the journey through the previous layers was not about accumulation of knowledge alone, but about awakening self-awareness. The texts imply that Christ's message, hidden in symbols and allegories, was always about this ascent, guiding humanity to recognize its divine origin and its capacity for conscious transformation. This level of consciousness brings a profound sense of inner authority, as the seeker realizes that true guidance does not come solely from outside, but emerges from the illuminated understanding of one's own being. Reflect for a moment. How often have you sought answers externally, in rules, expectations, or opinions, only to find they left you feeling incomplete? The eighth universe offers a different path, one of self-realization and direct experience of the divine. Symbols in the Nag Hammadi texts, such as light emanating from the mind or the soul ascending through spheres, are not meant to be literal, but metaphoric. They describe the layers of consciousness that, when understood, free the individual from confusion and despair. Here, Christ is not merely a historical figure, but the archetype of awakening, the one who reveals the hidden path and encourages the seeker to reclaim the divine spark that has always existed within. This spark is subtle, often masked by doubt, fear, or societal conditioning, but the texts emphasize that it is never lost. It simply awaits recognition. For the viewer, this final layer has practical significance. Feeling lost, anxious, or uncertain is often a reflection of being caught in lower levels of consciousness, repeating patterns of thought and behavior that obscure clarity. The Gnostic teaching suggests that by consciously engaging with these inner universes, examining beliefs, observing reactions, cultivating insight, one can experience a sense of liberation, an awakening that transforms daily life. The eighth universe is a mirror, showing that the highest truths are not distant, but deeply personal, woven into the fabric of your own awareness. As you reflect on this, consider what might change in your life if you embrace the possibility that hidden layers of consciousness exist within you, and that awakening to them is both attainable and necessary. How would it feel to realize that the divine spark, the ultimate revelation of Christ, has always been part of your inner world, waiting for your recognition? The journey through these universes is not merely intellectual, it is a lived experience, a path to clarity, purpose, and profound self-understanding. As we step beyond the eighth universe, the Nag Hammadi texts encourage reflection on how these hidden truths touch our daily lives. The Gnostics saw that the spiritual ascent is not a theoretical exercise, but something deeply practical. Recognizing illusions in thought, emotion, and belief allows one to live with clarity, intention, and freedom. Some scholars believe that centuries of institutional control through churches, doctrines, and societal norms kept much of this knowledge obscured, emphasizing obedience over awakening. Today, the echoes of that influence remain. Many of us navigate life carrying inherited fears, unquestioned assumptions, and spiritual gaps, unaware of the inner universes waiting to be explored. The distortion of truth that the Gnostics describe is subtle but powerful. Authority, dogma, and external rituals can become barriers if we rely on them exclusively, leaving the seeker dependent on what is told rather than what is known internally. The texts suggest that liberation comes from cultivating inner vision, from questioning and observing without judgment, and from daring to engage with the invisible architecture of consciousness. Every moment of self-reflection, every choice to observe rather than react, becomes a step through these hidden layers, allowing insight to emerge where previously there was only confusion or routine. In the context of personal experience, these teachings are transformative. Feeling lost, disconnected, or uncertain often reflects being trapped in the lower layers of consciousness, reacting to life instead of consciously navigating it. The 8 universes act as a map, guiding the seeker to recognize these patterns, understand their origin, and gradually transcend them. By engaging with this hidden knowledge, one can cultivate a sense of purpose, self-mastery, and a direct connection to the divine spark that has always existed within. The texts, in their symbolic and allegorical language, urge us to awaken, to reclaim the wisdom that has been quietly preserved across millennia. Think about your own life. Which beliefs or fears shape your decisions without you realizing it? Which inner patterns repeat despite your best intentions? The Gnostic perspective encourages exploration, introspection, and courage. Awakening is not about abandoning the world, but understanding it and yourself more deeply. It is a recognition that the hidden truths of Christ are not inaccessible, but embedded in your own consciousness, waiting for the seeker who dares to look within. Some Gnostic passages describe the experience of moving through these universes as a subtle transformation. The mundane becomes meaningful. Confusion gives way to insight, and the seeker begins to perceive the interconnectedness of all things. The journey through hidden layers is both mystical and practical, offering guidance on how to act, choose, and respond in alignment with inner wisdom. As we continue, consider, how might your life change if you truly recognize these hidden universes within yourself? What decisions, actions, or perspectives would shift if you aligned with the inner guidance that the Gnostic texts reveal? Now, as we approach the culmination of this journey, the hidden truths of Christ and the 8 universes reveal their full weight. The 7th and 8th universes are not distant metaphysical concepts. They mirror the very layers of your consciousness, the arenas where choices, fears, and insights collide. The Nag Hammadi texts invite us to confront what has been buried, the illusions imposed by tradition, authority, or inherited patterns that obscure our perception of self and the divine. Some scholars note that these writings were hidden precisely because they challenged established power structures, offering personal awakening over blind obedience. By understanding these universes, you step into a lineage of seekers who refused to accept what was presented as absolute truth and instead explored the depths of consciousness itself. Consider this: the divine spark, the essence of Christ within the Gnostic framework, is not granted externally, it is recognized internally. Each layer, each universe, represents an aspect of your awareness that must be illuminated. How often do we feel lost, uncertain, or disconnected, believing that clarity must come from outside guidance? The texts challenge this notion, showing that insight, understanding, and spiritual awakening are accessible through observation, reflection, and engagement with the hidden layers within. Every fear, every habitual reaction, every unquestioned belief is a doorway, if approached consciously, to a higher level of understanding. The Gnostic path is practical and personal. It asks you to see the world as it truly is, to recognize the forces that shape your mind and spirit, and to awaken to the divine spark that has always existed inside you. The reflective climax lies in the realization that these 8 universes, while described in symbolic language, map directly to the journey of human consciousness. The distortions and obstacles the Gnostics called archons are mirrored in modern life. The distractions, authorities, and inherited narratives that keep you from seeing clearly. Yet Christ's hidden message, encoded in metaphor and preserved in the Nag Hammadi texts, offers a way to navigate this labyrinth. By exploring these inner universes, you gain not only understanding, but also freedom. Freedom from unconscious patterns, freedom from fear, and freedom to align your actions with your deepest awareness. Ask yourself, which part of your life feels dominated by unseen forces? Which areas could be transformed by the clarity that comes from moving consciously through these hidden layers? This is the essence of the revelation. Awakening is not a distant ideal, but a lived experiential process. The texts are not merely historical artifacts. They are guides for the seeker willing to explore, question, and engage with the depths of consciousness. The journey through the 8 universes illuminates both the complexity and the potential of the human spirit, showing that hidden truths are not lost. They have been preserved, awaiting those ready to discover them. Now reflect. What insights have you begun to uncover within yourself? Which universes have you already glimpsed in your own life, and which remain veiled, waiting for your conscious engagement? Your awareness is the key to traversing these layers, and the hidden truths of Christ invite you to step forward, to awaken, and to see beyond the ordinary into the profound. As we reach the end of this journey through the 8 universes, it becomes clear that the hidden truths of Christ, preserved in the Nag Hammadi texts, are not distant or abstract. They are alive within each of us, waiting to be recognized. These universes, symbolic of layers of consciousness, reveal the path from confusion to clarity, from habitual reaction to intentional awareness, from fear to the recognition of the divine spark that has always resided within. Christ's message, encoded in these writings, was never about blind adherence, but about awakening, an invitation to explore, to question, and to experience a deeper understanding of life, purpose, and self. By acknowledging these hidden layers, we uncover a profound insight. The path to spiritual freedom is a personal, conscious journey guided by awareness, reflection, and inner truth. Think of your own life in this light. How often have you felt trapped by doubt, uncertainty, or external expectations? The 8 universes offer a map, a framework to observe and understand these patterns, revealing the distortions that obscure your clarity and the forces that limit your perception. Each level represents a step towards self-mastery, a movement from unconscious reaction to conscious participation in your own life. The Nag Hammadi texts remind us that spiritual awakening is not granted externally. It is recognized internally. The divine spark, the essence of Christ, is always present. It is our engagement, curiosity, and courage that allow it to shine. As you reflect on this, consider, which universes have you already glimpsed? Which parts of your consciousness are still waiting to awaken? If this journey has sparked curiosity, clarity, or even just the feeling that there is more to life than meets the eye, I invite you to take part in keeping these revelations alive. Comment below with your thoughts, reflections, or questions about your own experience of these hidden layers. Share what you have discovered within yourself, or the obstacles you feel are standing in the way. By engaging, you are not only exploring your own consciousness, you are joining a community of seekers who dare to look beyond conventional understanding, who value knowledge that has been preserved for centuries, and who honor the hidden truths of Christ. Liking this video and subscribing to the channel is more than a simple gesture. It is a commitment to your own awakening and a way of participating in the ongoing search for insight, wisdom, and spiritual clarity. The journey does not end here. Every insight, every question, and every reflection is a doorway to further exploration. What hidden layers of your consciousness will you discover next? How will the recognition of these universes transform your understanding of yourself, your life, and the divine. The search for knowledge, for clarity, and for the divine spark within continues. And the Nag Hammadi texts offer a guide for those willing to take the path, step by step, universe by universe. The invitation is eternal. Are you ready to awaken?